this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Okay, all right, let's get this thing started. I am here with Ron Howard. I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, like legitimately.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it as well.
We've always had good conversations. I feel like you were one of the rare people that I feel like opens up, kind of talks about real things instead of just business all the time.
The propped up facade of our business.
Right, exactly.
Everything's great. Everything's awesome.
Exactly.
No, we all got a lot of the same problems.
Right, exactly. So let's just kind of start with how it all began. How you sort of started, like young Ron, before real estate, before any of that stuff. Like, what was life like?
So, I grew up in a military family, and we moved around a lot. We lived in Maryland, Germany, Alaska, Guam, and Hawaii. And so found it easy to make new friends. And, you were used to packing up and moving. So it had its pros and cons, right? Like I feel like I'm good at meeting new people. And then I had to teach myself to get into deeper relationships because, it was, we always run on like a time clock. Okay, we're out, we got to move. So as you get older, much younger, I realized that I need to work on being a better friend, which became one of a core column of my business. I didn't want people to ever think I was selling them.
Right.
So that, came through to later in life, being a really important aspect of my life in my sphere of influence. Nobody will ever say I'm chasing them or selling them. But, growing up, I wasn't a good student. I keep two things on my desk to motivate me. There's a lot of things that motivate me, but two things that I keep on my desk. I have a picture of I won the state championship.
Oh, that's cool.
Wrestling in Maryland, which was like a milestone achievement for me. We trained 5 hours a day, and that was my ticket into college. And so the picture right after I won, the Polaroid snapshot, that sometimes like I'll look at that because that was at that moment in time, that was not trying to relive my high school here, but
no, totally.
That was like a major, because I only started in ninth grade and I was wrestling kids that had been wrestling since like the first grade.
Right.
But I was in a system. I believed in it. It was a structure.
And you committed yourself to it.
Yeah. And I could speak for hours about my coach that had me believe in a certain way to pull out, the things. I could never wrestle better than the guys I could beat. There was two things: I could get really good on my feet, and I could be in better shape.
Right. So the intangibles, the stuff that you can't necessarily.
I was beating
teach.
guys that have been wrestling their whole lives,
right.
like they had been state champs previously.
Right.
Because
you just wanted it more.
By the third period, they were worn out, and I was just getting started.
Right.
So if you follow wrestling, Iowa wrestles like that. They beat you down, beat you down. By the third period, you're so beat and tired that's where you start making mistakes.
Right.
So that was one thing. The other thing that I keep on my desk is my report card from the third grade, which Santa Barbara Elementary School in Guam. It was the only thing I have that talked about my stuttering problem. I had good grades, but the teacher said he's really having a hard time putting his words together.
Right.
And so that was something I had I stuttered a lot and I was shy. It made me shy, and then it made me like really silly and get into a lot of trouble. Like I just had a hard time communicating.
Right. Kind of building a defense mechanism in a sense. Like this kind of like if I do something outlandish, maybe people won't think about my stutter or something.
Yeah, I just I was shy, but I was I just never got it. I never got expelled, but I was just I was a silly kid.
Right,
I became
right.
a silly kid.
You didn't know when to turn it off and
my
stuff
communication was through being silly.
Got it.
And sometimes it didn't go as good as.
Absolutely.
So those two things, because like I just spoke at the 50th anniversary, the REMAX convention, the R4 convention, and I get over the years after writing a few books, I get asked to speak at different things, and a lot of times because it's not really a money making thing.
Right.
It's really a pump your ego up kind
Sure,
of thing
sure.
at this point, right?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and so it's to overcome a pretty bad stuttering problem.
Yeah.
Was a big deal for me. So
That is a big deal. I would never know that you had a stutter as a kid, you know? I mean, I guess you had a long time to work on it.
I
But
can show you the report card.
I believe you. That is interesting, though. That's
So yeah,
interesting.
two things I keep on my desk every day from my childhood just to find motivation out of.
That is interesting that we hold on to things from our childhood that stays with us for like literally your life. It's like it's insane to me to think that something at like a report card from third grade
Yeah.
still motivates you to this day. It's I mean it's amazing, you know. It's really cool.
It's really interesting because I had speaking at our national convention as the check box that would satisfy
Right.
that. Okay, I think I've overcome the
I've
stuttering
overcome it.
problem.
Right.
Yeah, like that was the thing. Like, like my brother and my father are both gifted. So when I got I always thought maybe I'm slow, but nobody's telling me, because they're
Right,
really
right.
gifted. But when I got my driver's license, I was like, all right, they wouldn't give me a driver's license.
Right.
And then when I got my pilot license years later, like
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I'm definitely
I think I'm good. I think
Yeah,
cleared enough boundaries at
because
this
my
point.
dad was always like, go out there and give it your best. And I
Right.
really seriously thought about this in high school. I was like, I might be slow. Compared
I
to
can understand. Yeah, I can understand if there's such talent around you all the time, and you're so used to seeing like in your eyes perfection, and you always feel like you're like trying to reach that. You're kind of
Academic,
like, why can't I do that? You know?
well, I was like, because you certainly get motivated by different things. And my dad would
Yeah.
always be like, go out there and do it, give it your best. And I'm like, what if I'm just like normalize? I'm certainly not gifted and talented like they are.
Right.
But I had doubts until I got my driver's license.
That's interesting. So I guess let's get into what's kind of triggered you to start writing. Like where did that come from? You've written 3 books. It is now
I've written 3 books. Yeah.
3 books. So what kind of jump started that? And like was this years into your real estate business, or was this kind of early on that you kind of knew that you wanted to write something, or was it?
So I had accomplished, our team had sold over 500 transactions, and we had gotten, pretty high volume, 30-person team. And somebody on my team asked me what it was that we did, that I did that got us to that level. And I said, give me a week and I'll write a document, share it with the team, different ideas. And it made me go back to the very beginning, which I had completely forgot about. And in that question was like, why are you so driven? And I had forgot, I had completely just sort of forgot the origin of that drive. And then when I thought about it, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like what, because I'd shut down a business, I was running out of money.
Right.
I had this really, just clarity on what I had to do, and some of those ideas I bet on got me to do. I had 10 deals by my 3rd month and never slowed down. But it was I took a massive effort in building who I was in regards to how I would compete, because everybody at that time I knew a lot of people knew 5 realtors. Like, how am I going to stand out? Like, how?
Right.
What is it that I'm going to build my brand and basically who I am? So I had this really interesting moment in time where it was like peeling back the layers of an onion of all the bullshit you tell yourself.
Sure.
To get to
Yeah.
the truth. And my thing was I had to give this 110% effort.
Yeah.
And then so I had to define 110% effort. And once I committed to that concept, for me, it was really easy to, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. And we can get into that. But I felt like, so I started writing this thing for my team. And then I thought about, why don't I write, well, I found this article and it said, if you do something really well, you should write a book about it. And then I found the
Sure.
formula of a self-improvement book. And I said, why don't I commit? And I did this in a very, like, not a lot of thought, but I promised myself, which I'll get into the difference between goals and promises. But why don't I write 4 books? Why don't I commit to learning my business so well that I could write 4 books of content about operating, like with a great operation and commit. So it's really a accountability tool for myself to commit.
Commit to something tangible.
The first book was more of like, here are some of the unique things that I did to get to a certain level. And that book was Create Demand and Stop Chasing Business. I never cold called anybody. I never door knocked. I never, chased business.
Wow,
So
that's interesting. Actually, yeah, that's especially. I mean, you've been in the business for a long time, so those things were like felt like
it's the
only
low hanging
things.
fruit. It's what
Right.
everybody's like taught. Like, you
Right.
can do this. I didn't feel like there was any equity being built. I felt like this was a relationship business.
Sure.
So, there was a lot there that I did. I wanted to be known for certain things. I wanted to be known as the hardest working realtor
Right.
forever.
Right.
I start my day every day at 4:00 now, but
Yeah, you
back-
told me that. That's part of your book too, right?
this third book, yeah. But my thing was, my car would be in the parking lot by 6:00.
Right.
So if you drove by my office, everybody in town would say, "Oh wow, Ron's
Ron-
car's there at 6:00."
Ron's there.
And that was the way that people would see I was the hardest working realtor.
Yeah.
Now I knew a ton of people. When I started, I wasn't sure people would think I was like, the sharpest guy. I knew a lot of people from socializing and out and about at bars and restaurants, but a lot of people. A month earlier, I'd ran into a buddy of mine who just got his pilot license, and I was so impressed. I was like, that's how I want to make people feel. So I was scared to death of flying, but I went to flight school and I thought I was going to kill myself. But I was like, it was
I don't know if I'd be doing that.
well, I'm about 6 months later, I'm a pilot. But
Yeah.
so when I was reconnecting with everybody, as I was getting into real estate, they were wondering what I'd been up to, because I had
Right.
stopped drinking, I stopped going out, I
Yeah.
stopped dating, I was working early, but I was also halfway through flight school when I was reconnecting with everybody,
Yeah.
and everybody was like really intrigued with that. So the effect of I would assume that somebody's sharp if they can fly a plane and they
Sure.
have a pilot license.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty funny thing. It might have been over the top, but it's something I did, and I'm a pilot, and
Yeah.
I think you would have to agree I'm at least somewhat sharp.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like it was a really thing I think that made me stand out of part of my brand. And
That's an interesting concept to think. That's like really outside of the box to think like, instead of like, I'm gonna teach classes or so, you know what I mean? Like it's like it's like a perception, and I think that's the same way as like branding yourself is like, it's a perception that people have about you because you've accomplished certain things, even if outside of the realm of what you do. It's just something that people are like, wow, like they're a
Sharp.
real go-getter. Yeah,
Sharp
like
guy.
yeah, exactly.
maybe I'm not gonna hire my sister-in-law. Maybe the guy who's
She's not a pilot.
maybe the guy who's at his office at 6 a.m. every day
Right.
and is sharp like a pilot. And I learned so much, and I wrote about the things I learned as a pilot, like the lessons you learn. If you read through that Create Demand, Stop Chasing Business, when I talk about this flight where it was my first long distance cross country solo flight where this fog developed and all of my training went into effect. And I talk about how those sort of concepts that you put into play transcend into business. And it's like a business. The thing you
Sure.
learn flying a plane, it's like just applies in so many different ways. So it was really helpful. Flight school actually made a huge impact on business, and especially where you can't be right 99% of the time. You have to be right 100% of the time.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
like having it exactly perfect every single time or you die.
Right.
It's like the concept that I use. So
Yeah.
like the accuracy in my contracts and
Yeah.
everything I do, it's not like the rule is it's 100% every single time
Right.
with everything I do.
Right.
So that's my mindset, which was amazing. But so the third thing of my brand was, I knew this was a relationship game. So I read all these different books about how to connect with people. And there was a book by a guy named Robert Cialdini called Influence that talks about mental triggers and how we trigger people in different ways, with authority, with scarcity, with reciprocity. with all these different ways that you are automatically subconsciously triggering people. And I found that fascinating, that you can create authority and how all these concepts work. So it's something that if you're not going to be chasing people, you really got to know how you're triggering people.
Right.
And if you've ever bought something and wasn't certain why, you can go back and look at the marketing. And they created authority because they created social proof, like this person's using it, this person's using it. They create scarcity where if you don't move today, you're going to lose it and somebody else is going to get your territory, right? And then they give you this amazing value. Like if you do it today, you can get all of this 10 times the value for $2,000.
Oh, I still get those ads where they've gotten me there like so many times. Yeah, where I'm just like, I don't need this, but it's like, look at the value.
It's fascinating when especially if you've bought something and you're like,
well, I didn't need that.
Yeah,
but it was 80% off.
So
they say.
Yeah, in that first book, I wrote about this tech company that did that with a predictive analytics. They could predict with these 200 algorithms when people are going to move, and this whole coordinated program that they do. And it was BS, but they masterfully used mental triggers to get me like, yes, I want this, and I got to protect, I got to get it, I got to keep other people from getting it.
Yes.
When you get ready to buy something and you're really emotionally excited about it, you got to stop.
Right. And give it a breath.
and think about like how you're being triggered. And have a convergence of logical thinking versus that triggered emotional kind of decision making that's not really good for you.
I have over the years finally learned how to stop that impulsiveness of what I did, especially like when I was first starting out and building my brand. Like I wanted a specific camera. Like when I first started, that was what I wanted. That was like the dream camera that I wanted. And I started with like I started with like an iPhone 7. My first ever paid gig was like an iPhone 7 that I filmed for somebody. And then I bought a normal camera after that, and ever since then, I've become like addicted to like gear. Like it's like I'm always wanting to change something or do something new, or I'm like, well, this will change it.
It's your job, it's your hobby,
Yeah. I don't regret any of it because it definitely it's helped me. Like you said, like you have to kind of go through the tough parts of it to kind of learn how to be where you're supposed to be, and I have finally learned to just, is this going to make me money? Does this make me incrementally better, or does it keep me at the same level? Is it going to add to my clients? Like, are my clients getting more value out of this? So I'm constantly asking myself questions about like, all right, why do you need this? And sometimes it's just because I fucking want it. Like that's just, you know what I mean? And it's okay every once in a while, as long as you're not putting yourself, out of the way too much.
The fourth column of my brand when I started into real estate, and this goes back to your question about writing, because you could sit in a room of like 20 realtors, or actually like let's just say 5 realtors, and say, what is your brand? Like I can go down what my brand is from the very beginning because I created it. Yeah. And a month earlier I was not any of it. And then I became a whole completely different person. Sure. Because we are our brand in real estate, right? So the fourth one was I wanted to be known as a guy that gave back to the community. At that point I really had done nothing in the community. Right. And then so I started volunteering for all these different nonprofits and getting involved in their event committees, and really with the goal of being able to show that I'm involved in the community. And then I realized I really enjoy it. Right. Like I come to find out being like altruistic makes me feel good. Yeah. Which was awesome in itself. But the thing that I didn't realize was it creates reciprocity where people that are involved in those nonprofits would say, hey, that guy's like really involved in helping out. Like we're going to sell our house with him, or we're going to use him. And instead of our sister-in-law or our neighbor or whatever. And I started getting these calls from people, and it's still to this day one of the largest columns of business. Now, there's a thing I talk about, it's called serve regardless of opportunity. So you got to serve, and I'm on like boards now, I've been on boards. So you just kind of evolve in that whole nonprofit world. you can't serve regardless of opportunities. You can't expect it. You can't talk
Right.
about it. You can't ask for it. You
Right.
can't tie
Right.
anything that you're doing into getting something back. It's
Exactly.
serve regardless of
Exactly.
opportunity. But reciprocity is a super trigger.
It
and
always happens. Yeah.
yeah. So I love giving back. I just joined a board, St. Francis Community Center on the west side of Baltimore. It's really at the intersection of kids that can go, stay on track or get really off track.
Yeah.
And I love it. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think I do think that we're taught a lot in business that it's just kind of like it's just business. You know what I mean? Like no offense, it's just business and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that if you adopt that mindset of like I am a good guy, like I genuinely just want to help people. Like I'm not trying to sell you. I'm not trying to make you do something you don't want to do, because that high pressure sales shit that I feel like it's
A lot of people try and use.
yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like you're always selling somebody.
Yeah.
And that gets so old so fast. You're just kind of like, dude, like
I don't even talk
get
about
it,
real estate,
you know?
unless I'm actually doing it. It's
Yeah.
I'm not passively aggressively trying to get people to hire me. They see my signs around town. They see,
Yeah.
they see
It's-
our stuff out there.
It's funny you're like that too, because I'm like instinctually I'm a terrible networker, because like I can be around somebody and I won't talk about myself. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just something that was ingrained in me when
It's
I was
humble.
young.
You're being humble. Like I'm humble too. Like
I'm almost humble to a fault sometimes, though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and I don't regret that, because I do think that's
do
that's
you
me.
know who I am?
Right, exactly. Like I don't.
There's enough people like that.
Yeah,
around here.
exactly.
Like,
I just-
we've
I-
met our quota in this area.
If people find out who I am and they want to use me or use business, that's how I want it to happen. I don't want
Yeah.
it to be like me being like, well, I work with these people and I work with this person and I do this and I do that. And like, don't get me wrong. When somebody is like, oh, can I have some examples of your work? I'll send, high ticket people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll send the Hughes of the world and the Craig Northrops of the world and be like, hey, I work with all these people.
Right.
And that instantly gets recognition. But like, if I'm out and about, I'm just not somebody who's going to like puff my chest out and be like, oh, I do this and I do that and I do it. And I've always been like that since I was a kid. Like,
Yeah.
Even when I play music, like you would never know. Most people don't even know that I play music still to this day.
Right.
Because I don't talk about it.
Right. Yeah. Every now and then you see something, but I'm the same way. Like I ended up being like the captain of the wrestling team or the captain of the football team, not because I was the stereotypical like team leader, but I led by example.
Example, right?
Yeah, and that was that to our coaches was strong. Like, because that's 10 times better than somebody who's just going to yap a lot. And we're in a business where there's a propped up facade. Like
It's almost like comes with the territory almost. It's so strange.
Well, there's, like we all get these fake awards, and half the people that get them will make a huge deal about it. And to this day, nobody knows why we get them from our industry loves awards, and then they'll take an award that you're not even sure what it is,
Right.
and people will take it and make it seem as if they just won, this like humanitarian award.
Yeah.
And
What's the one that goes around every year?
HomeSnap.
HomeSnap, right?
Yeah.
Every year, it's my Facebook and Instagram just blanketed with
Oh.
HomeSnap photos.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But the other thing is our industry ranks us by volume,
Right.
and I've researched this and studied it and written about it in my second book. Profitability and performance pit stops is like most, and I know this because I was coached for years, and I was a coach for 4 years, which I didn't really talk about because people say, oh, he's getting out of real estate, he's coaching, but it made me, I'd have like 2 or 3 people I coached after being coached for many years. A system. We'll get into like all of the fake coaches out there too.
Oh God, it's the worst.
Everybody's a coach now,
Yeah.
shoot, I lost track of what I was saying there. Too many different things going through my head.
Yeah. So we can get into the coaches now if you want, because that's probably an interesting topic, and because even in my industry, it's the same thing. It's like people always want to sell a course. They always want to sell like my class, my coaching, this and that, when they haven't.
Oh, you know what?
even
You know what I
done
was
it.
talking about. I'm sorry. What there should be awards for is consumer experience.
Yes.
Consumer
Absolutely.
experience is the
Yeah.
biggest thing. So, like, what ends up with a lot of people, especially if you're a hustler, you're a grinder, whatever you want to call yourself, and you're doing a lot of volume, it's all volume. So we're rated based on volume, right?
Right,
Like, so you're
right.
ranked. So when I did 500 transactions and wrote after I wrote my first book of how great I was or whatever. There were guys like Lee Tessier up in Hartford County
Yeah.
that was like almost 3 times more profitable.
Right. Right.
But everybody in the public would think I was this bigger realtor because
Right,
our
right.
volume was much higher.
Right, right.
And I just know how, like, a lot of times your model at 5 agents doesn't scale at 30 agents. And I've
Right.
studied it, I've lived it. I went from 30 and rebuilt to 10
Mm-hmm.
to build up with a new structure. And I've been coached by really, really smart people. So everybody's a coach now. And I'll say, oh, okay, you're a
Mm-hmm.
coach. That's cool. Like, who coached you?
Right.
Oh, no.
How were you trained to be a coach? Right.
Nobody. Like, so like where I was coached by this company called Workman Success Systems, and they've created Remax teams, their whole internal, and which I participated in. But I was coached for 3 years before they asked me if I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
And because I'd implemented this whole complete structure and system, and it's elaborate of so many different components, tracking daily success habits, time blocking. We do daily huddles. I mean, I could go on and on and on. The commitments to be in the team,
Yeah.
very, very structured. Most teams are just an assemblage of agents,
Right.
And they like to show that they have all this volume, but.
Right.
The team leader may or may not even be making any money from it. Really, I mean,
Right.
in most cases,
Right.
they're not. In most cases, they might be losing a little bit of money. And thankfully, they're still in operation themselves.
Yeah.
Even at some of the really large teams,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised. Meanwhile, an individual agent that does like 30 deals and like 30 $800,000 deals might be making like $700,000.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, this team leader of like a 30 person or 20 person
Right.
team
You just assume.
might be making half of that.
Right.
Netting, right? But they're getting the big awards. They're on the big
Right.
stages. They're like,
Right.
I just got, I'm number one at this or number
Right.
one at that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, people that have never been coached that are coaching. And, I don't know, I guess if that works for them, that
Sure,
it's great. It's a really interesting, the difference between somebody that's really good at speaking and like selling
Yeah.
coaching,
Yeah.
and then the actual coaching that they're selling. They're-
Right. The product and the. Yeah.
Yeah, I find
Right.
a lot of like legit coaching companies.
Mm-hmm.
The person that owns that company is an amazing speaker, salesperson,
Right.
before anything else,
Right.
And then you have to figure out, like, okay, what they're selling, and gotten really good doing
Sure.
1,000 speeches and talking about, and figuring out how to trigger. It's pretty easy because a lot of us, it's what we have and where we want to go, and there's
Right.
this huge gap.
Right.
And when you can play and poke in the wounds and get people excited about going, like, I can be the ticket to get you to there.
Right.
But that's the difference with me is, like, so many people use coaching as a tool, or they'll write a goofy book because they got a lot of something to say to people.
Yeah.
Where when I wrote, like, the books I've written is really, first off, to hold me accountable to going really deep, and then sharing and helping people get to success with a straight line.
Yeah. I actually love that. That's actually a genuinely cool idea. Is that was a way to help you keep you accountable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's an interesting way to look at things.
I'm halfway through my last one, which is Advanced Concepts of Real Estate Teams. And I've been implementing, there's 20 chapters, and there were like 8 things that I wasn't doing. And I've started this book a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And as I was researching it, I was like, I was watching an interview of this guy, Gary Ashton, and he was talking about how deep he was involved in pay-per-click leads and SEO. And then he partnered with his partner, Deborah Beagle, and she was doing like $1 million listings and everything. And I was like, and there was 2 people I was getting ready to interview. And I stopped everything. And I said, I got to go super deep on this tech so that I don't have to rely on hiring people. Now, I will hire people, but I want to be able to the master of it.
Right.
So I went super deep on pay-per-click leads, ads, Google ads, Facebook, targeting, retargeting, super deep on SEO,
Yeah.
super deep on YouTube channels, some of these evergreen lead gen things. And then, have hired people to do that stuff. But so that the last book is forcing me. So it was like 8 things that I was just going to interview people and write about. But I stopped and said, I'm going to implement all of it so I can write about it firsthand, and it's
Right.
taking my business to the next level. So like I always say, you can grow without growing in volume or growing with staff. We had to right size our team, get better alignment with core values, which means we went from 15 to 10.
Yeah,
And,
I think I was starting to work with you when you just had started making that transition.
well, we went 30 to 10 and then 10 to like 17 and then fluctuated a little bit. But now we went down to 10 and then up at 12 because because when you're in a couple of years of where anybody can sell a house,
Right.
like you're not as critical about some of the things you should be. And I could see the writing on the wall where this business was going. And I lost all my flexibility of being in alignment with core values. I don't care how much real estate you sell, you gotta have integrity and honesty
Yeah.
at the highest levels. Like
Yeah.
I don't want my brand watered down.
Right.
Like
you start losing that, and you start losing your passion for it because you're like, I'm a fraud. Like I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling of feeling like I'm not doing something, or people think that I'm not like genuine.
for me, so the arc for me, like a lot of us, you're driving, you're getting the volume, and then you're like, oh, well, I got to figure a way to do that volume and make it more profitable. And then it goes first full circle where it should have never left from, which is consumer experience
Right.
and working with people that you enjoy seeing every day at
Right.
the highest levels, not
Exactly.
just a propped up facade
Exactly.
where you're on all these social media outlets making everybody feel like it's all hunky and dory.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it really is.
Right.
You know what's funny? I've been wearing this thing. Been wearing my headset the whole time. It's pretty funny. I didn't even, I wear it all day.
I didn't even notice it, to be honest.
You know what's cool about this thing? So I have cauliflower ears from wrestling,
Oh, okay.
and I can't wear earbuds. So these things are
Oh.
called shocks, and they're bone conducting. So they
Nice.
they don't go in your ears. But what's cool, because I can't wear AirPods, they won't go in.
Oh, wow.
But what's cool is you can hear, your ears aren't blocked. And I don't
That's
know
interesting.
how AirPods work exactly because I can't fit them in my ears, but these things work great. I forgot it was on my head.
Yeah. I know after a while, earbuds start hurting my ears, so I don't even wear them. I get the bigger headphones, if anything.
Well, you got to check these out. These are
Yeah, I'll
these
check
are
those
really
out.
good. Their connectivity with Bluetooth and everything is pretty cool. So
Nice.
So I'm not like, so with the books and this last one, I committed to writing 4 books, and so I don't set goals. I make promises,
Right.
and I don't break promises.
Yeah.
So if you're like doing a business plan or setting goals,
Yeah.
like we do every year, like we do business plans, but I do promises.
Yeah.
And I don't break them. So
I like that. I actually selfishly want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Because I struggle a lot with, like, I will go all out when it comes to like my business and like people that are my clients and people that I'm working with. Like, I'm always making sure I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to get things done. But when it comes to me trying to push myself and do things that I know are valuable for me and like my future, my brand, like doing the YouTube channel more, because I see success when I do it, but I'm not consistent enough with it at all. And I try to make those promises to myself. I'm like, it's literally like 1 video a week. That's all.
Right.
If you just commit to 1 video a week, but then I'll just let everything else like get in my way. I'll make excuses like constantly, just like it's dumb excuses.
So you know what you got to do? You have to write on a piece of paper and you hang this in your bathroom and in your mirror, and you should do it. And write, what future am I killing today?
Mm,
And I asked that question.
That actually hurts. It hits home.
What future am I killing today? And I ask myself that every morning.
Yeah.
And I look at, I've created a lifestyle framework that is not easy.
Yeah.
I start my day every day at 4:05. My
Yeah,
alarm clock goes
that's
off.
wild.
I go live in a mastermind group every single day at 4:20
Yeah.
a.m. 4:20 to 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
That holds me accountable and holds other people accountable to doing 3 hours of work before 7:30 in the
Yeah.
morning, so that they can spend family time in the evening.
Right.
It's got I turned it into a 90-day challenge and in my third book, and it's got a no alcohol commitment. It's got a diet commitment. It's got all these different things. And it's like a little hobby thing because it's a framework that I hold myself accountable to. And I
Sure.
have, just like flying, I have zero flexibility with it.
Right.
And there's two concepts that drive me. And so they're things I think about every day, every morning. And so we were pregnant during COVID, and we thought our son wasn't going to make it. And we got this bad genetic test in, and I would go in to work like every day during that period. It was like March 2020, and I'd sit at my desk and cry. And I mean, it makes me cry,
Yeah.
like thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean,
And so one
Scary.
morning, I was sitting there at my desk, and I was saying, God, this is so painful. This is so painful. I can make it. I can make it through this. And when I heard the word painful, I heard pain fuel, and I was like, pain fuel. And I was thinking about how much pain I was in, because I was literally crying and saying to myself, this is so painful, and then pain fuel. And I was like, pain fuel. I'm like, man, what a way to describe taking pain in your life and transmuting that into motivation. And then anytime I think about it, it tears me up, because
Yeah,
it was such a dramatic time, and and so I every day I think about pain fuel. So I know nothing good in life comes without a little suffering, right? Like,
absolutely.
so, and it's a lonely road where you have to like 3 hours every morning across 2 months to build 1,000 pages of SEO content. That's not easy to do, but I did it in like 2 months, right? Like, so there's not. I know in life there's nothing good unless there's a bit of pain and suffering, and most people get stuck in life because of the perceived pain of like, I can't start my own business. I'm scared it's going to be too painful,
right.
And it's not until the pain that you're dealing with gets more than what you think the perceived pain is, and you make that move and you realize it wasn't painful.
Right. It's just anxiety really more than anything. It's I do appreciate you sharing that story with us, because that's, and not to demean what other people pain they go through and stuff like that, but that is a very uniquely parent thing to feel that type of scared. Like, that type of scared is the type of scared that you cannot physically explain to anyone else that doesn't have kids, because it's so scary, especially during the pregnancy when you're getting all these things and you're hearing things, you're just unsure, you don't even know what they look like yet, really, and it's like you just want to see their face, like that's it.
For 2 weeks, we thought our son wasn't going to make it. It was like 4 months
that's scary,
old
man.
in the pregnancy. So the thing that the second part of that, so I gravitate towards things that are difficult because I know that's where I can grow and probably make some money, and a lot of people aren't going to do those same things. And I say I can, and everything I used to say I can't. So in that dramatic moment, even like, think about it, I got a fight tearing up about it, but Pain Fuel, which is like this great brand reminder that says basically, like, take the pain of any situation and turn that into motivation.
Yeah.
And then, like, for things like, I used to see this guy working out every morning at 4 a.m. and I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And one morning I was like, I can do that.
I'm gonna do it.
I can do that. I can do that every day.
Yeah.
I do it
Yeah.
every day. I'm on year 4 of starting my day at 4:05.
Wow.
And then that challenge, I think we're almost at like day 90 of that. But I'll do that. I mean, I can go on and do that forever. I mean,
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Right.
And it's on YouTube too, so you can see it. It's not bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible, man. There is really only 2 things you can do when you come into a painful situation. It's either loathe and literally let it succumb you, and you just become useless in a sense.
Pound you into the ground. A lot of
Yeah.
people like drink their face off.
Right. You
numb
escape.
themselves.
You try to escape from
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And that's where a lot of the addictions and stuff like that come into play, is just trying to avoid this painful situation in any way possible, and just don't think about it. You'll make up excuses about it, like well, it's just I have health insurance, or I have I have security, you know what I mean? And it just it can drive you into the ground. Or like you said, I love that just little because sometimes that's what it takes, is like a verbal kind of trigger to remind yourself, be like, that's what I needed. Because sometimes I just if you're in your head all the time, you don't physically try and get something out or like remind yourself, it's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
You're locked inside your head. My head is just so all over the place that
So I don't make decisions with my feelings, which
it's a
is
hard thing to do. A very hard thing to do.
Well, I have I really believe in the concept of small hinges swing big doors. And meaning, like, for me, I got to lock into these basic concepts, and then I can forget why. But if I focus, like, like just simple concepts, like if I'm saying I can't, say I can. And that changes so much.
Yeah.
It means I do stuff I would stop myself from doing. So something happens and you get pissed off, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people start doing things with that.
Yeah.
For me, like I know when I'm emotionally pissed off, I can't react, and then I'll tuck it away. And then I have a thing where I just will have to logically think through it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it just fades away.
Right.
But sometimes through thinking, it's like, okay, yeah, that does merit a reaction, but it's
Right.
never an immediate emotional reaction.
Right. It's never the
Because it's
what you
never
were
the
about
right
to do.
reaction. It's never the right reaction.
Whatever you were about to do was probably not going to be the right reaction.
80% of people that kill somebody never had a criminal record.
Right. It's just pure
Crime of
adrenaline.
passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
passion.
got emotionally fired up, and and not that I ever had thought about killing anybody. Close. No. But yes, thankfully I can control that, right?
Yeah.
And that ends up being a superpower. But
That is.
it's like, for me, like, if I focus on simple ideas, those little simple concepts, if I lock into them, consistency, the commitment, the accountability, those things are undefeated.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the track record of most people who are successful in whatever bar that you set for what success is, whether it's money or clout or whatever it is, like, it's consistency, it's the discipline, it's being, well, not always a good person, but but I don't necessarily, to me, if you have all the wealth in the world, but you're frowned upon in the public eye, and you have to feel some sort of way about that. Like, you might be able to, like, ignore it for a while.
I'm so wealthy beyond the money I have.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm 53. I'm healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I used to party years ago, but I knew at some point that, for me, and I'm so thankful, and I feel bad because I get invited into, different, like, groups of people struggling. But I knew at some point I was, like, gonna hang up the hat of because it didn't fit in my calendar
Right.
anymore.
It
It's
starts
time consuming.
it starts getting into interfering with what you're building for.
Oh yeah. Well, My the last book I wrote, I wrote about like the studying of my time and like just drinking. No one would say I had a drinking problem,
Yeah.
but drinking 75 days a year, like there were 75 days where I wasn't feeling good. The next day, there was half of those times that even the next day I wasn't feeling good because
Right.
we'd really go at it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
but
especially
it's
the older you get.
yeah, there'd be like a Friday night where we stayed out
Yeah.
late and had too many drinks,
Yeah.
and you know, and
Saturday's
then
a no go. Sunday, you're like,
and but when I counted all the time, and then I analyzed a couple other parts of my life, I literally found 5 months of time to put back in my calendar.
wow.
So then we had our son, and I'm trying to think of the numbers. So it was roughly. Just the drinking part of it was like 4.2 months of time. I'm talking about 4.2 months of 24-hour days of
Yeah.
not feeling good, or the time I was doing it, all combined, and not being able to get up 1 hour a day, 365 days a
earlier.
year is
Yeah.
15 days at time.
Wow.
So being able to get up from instead of 5:30 to 4:30, you add it all up. It was, and then when I made all my changes, it was like 5.27 months of time, and when after my son's first year, I forget exactly. It was like 87 days of time I spent with him, and then I was like, wow, that's why people that have kids and live a life that's not like the way they want it,
Yeah.
they don't have time for anything.
Right.
You know, they're just
Of
overwhelmed.
course you don't have time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So-
half the time you feel like shit.
Yeah, like I have not. So one day I was like 12 minutes late I got up at or I went I didn't start my day at 4:20. I started like at 4:44 in 4.5 years. Or
Wow.
excuse me, 3.5 years.
Wow.
Just
That's impressive, man.
but otherwise, well, you know,
Yeah.
but the whole goal, the whole reason for all of that is so I can hang out with my son when I get
Yeah.
home at night.
yeah.
I'm not, so I can take my moonshots, like working on these big projects in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm never happy where I'm at. So I got to keep on implementing and
Yeah.
working on things and getting things to the next level. Moonshot ideas, right? Like to get to the
Right.
next level.
Right.
JFK had that speech, the moonshot speech, which, you know, is talking about focusing on something and putting the time and working on it. And then what, you know, seemed like not possible, all of a sudden just happened.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that most people just don't understand is that you just, and I always tell this to people because I tried to teach guitar for a little bit of time. It just wasn't for me, but I was teaching it. And the thing I would always tell people was be prepared to absolutely suck for like 2 years. Like 2 years, just agree that you're going to suck. You're not going to ever get it. Your fingers are going to hurt. You're going to feel like I can't do this. It's not going to work.
Yep.
And then eventually there comes a point where you see the guitar different.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Matrix when Neo finally sees the code and he's just like, oh, like that's what happens when
Yeah.
you consistently chip away at something and
Yeah.
you consistently just like, I will not let anything change my mind from this. And no matter what it takes, if I have to work at an extra side job here or sell some things that I have, like this is what I'm doing and
Yep.
that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and I guess there comes a time where you could be, I don't know, maybe it's just not for you, but
I've taken guitar lessons and I've not got that far with it.
Yeah.
It's because I have like short, stubby fingers, so
Right.
I get how difficult that is, and I didn't have enough passion
exactly
to keep
The
going.
passion
Like
is
I
what
didn't really,
drives.
I
Yeah.
like wanted to learn, but this is really difficult.
Yeah.
So like
That weeds out people real quick is that if you don't actually genuinely have a passion for something, no matter what it is,
yeah,
that pain, like you said, that we talked about, that pain tolerance, you're like, it's
too
not-
painful to do it.
I don't want to do it.
but if you know that was, you know, like, you know, you think about it from a pain aspect, like if you were super driven or you believed that was gonna get you, you know, into star, you know, to be a star or success, or maybe you're like a shy kid and that was
Yeah.
you're gonna be your ticket into like you know, like and then so your drive is so strong and nothing's gonna stop you.
Yep.
You know, and but for me it was the flip side. It was like I I'm good. Like,
Right,
I don't,
right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
but I, you know, it's amazing to see that. And then other people are like just naturally gifted. Like my
Right.
brother could hear a song for the first time, pick up a instrument from Taiwan
Right,
he's
and
never
just
seen
hear the
before,
notes.
and then play a song
Yeah.
he'd never heard.
Yeah.
And people that like my stepmom was a music teacher and she couldn't play by ear. My brother could play instruments he'd never
Just
even
hear it,
seen.
yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and she had to read music, so I think she really hated on him for that.
And it is interesting too because that was something that I feel like I have a perfect example of both sides of the story, because from the time I picked up a guitar when I was like 12 until like my mid 20s, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That I was not doing anything else. Like I had my guidance counselor bring me down to his office every single day of my 12th grade year because I had really good grades. Like I'm just I just was instinctually just like, whatever, I got to do this. I'm going to do it right. And I would have A's and B's all throughout my 12th grade year, 11th grade years. And every day he was like, you should go to college. You should go to college. I'm like, bro, I done told you, like, I'm going to be a rock star one day. Like, that's it. I'm not doing anything else. Like, stop asking me because it's not going to happen. And we pushed. We got to the point where we went on tour. We did like this really cool tour. And we talked to a record executive. And we were like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And then like that, two of our members were like, we don't want to do this.
Right.
And I was like, fuck. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like,
Right.
we've done all of this.
Right.
But they saw the taste of it. They saw what we had to go through.
And
And they were like, nah, this ain't for me.
Right.
So at that point, that kind of like squashed my dream. Like, it was like gone. And, you know, we went back and tried to talk to the A&R guy, and they were like, who? Like, oh, that guy was fired like months ago. It was like something out of a movie. Like, that guy nobody knows about you guys.
Yeah.
So we literally, like, we tried to do it and we failed. So it was like, but with that, I started to see, like, when you're in something long enough, you know what it takes to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
We knew what we had to do. We had to replace the two guys, and we had to buy a van, and we had to go on tour and be broke for a long time,
Yeah.
and just get city to city and play and play and play until somebody sees you. And at that point, like, I was mid 20s, and my wife and I were just gotten married. And we were talking about maybe having kids. And I was like, once the kid thing came in, I was like, that's not my life.
Yeah.
That's not what I want my life to be. And then I spent the majority of my 20s literally just being shit. Like, because I didn't want anything else. So now I had to figure myself out, like, outside of music. What am I? You know what I mean?
Right.
I tried everything. I was a realtor for like 2 years. It was awful. It was an awful time of my life.
Can be awful.
And I don't think the job necessarily is awful. Like, I always encourage people to try things.
Yeah.
But for me and my personality, that was like not it. That wasn't. It didn't drive.
It's luck of the luck of the draw in a lot of cases too, with the people that you deal with. Like
Right.
the first couple transactions can be a nightmare sometimes. You know, just
Yes.
for it's uncontrollable.
Yes.
And then you navigate. You know, you navigate it the best you can, and then your clients are happy. But you know, you might be dealing with really difficult other side or something, and you know, but it's tough, right?
Yeah, and I
mean,
found that it's a very like sometimes it's a very non-thankful industry where people are just like, if you do a bad job, they hate you and you're awful and you did everything wrong and it's your fault. If you do the right thing, it's kind of like, well, that was your job, dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's never like, oh, you really, like, you know what I mean? Every
Yeah.
once in a while you get that person. And I didn't do that many transactions, so it's not like I have that much to weigh it on. But yeah, that was not for me. And I tried so many other, like, I worked every single job you can think of, like doing attic insulation, and worked in the coal yard down there by 895.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Yeah.
everything
I always
you could
wondered,
think of.
you know, those big machines that
Oh,
go
yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, we would. I had to. My job was literally to drive around the track all day. It was 12-hour shifts, and anytime they would bring a train in and like dump it into this big thing, and it would sift things out, and they would put it up into the big things, and it would shoot the coal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anytime it would get stuck, our job was to go get a fire hose, hook it up, and blow the coal out of it. Like, that was our job. Like, come home every day with just coal in my ears and just
Oh, man.
covered in coal, 12-hour days. And
Hopefully you had some good benefits.
Yeah. You never have any time to use any benefits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I spent all of my 20s just figuring myself out and trying things and listening to people talk shit about me. You know what I mean? Just being like, when's he gonna figure things out? You know, he's getting older now. He's getting, like living with his mom still and all that stuff. And like, I just always committed to the fact that I refuse to get stuck in this pattern of I'm just going to be okay with living like a life that I'm just not happy with.
You want to
know
hear
what I
a
mean?
funny story?
Yeah, sure.
So when I was 19, I was at a Super Bowl party, and I was reading through the Sunday paper, and there was a job for a computer tech traveling around the country teaching accounting software. And growing up, we had a computer room that I might have spent like 2 hours in because I played sports, football, and wrestling. And my brother was writing software, and they were both my dad and brother. That was their room, their computer room, right? So I remember reading that and then saying, I'm going to call this. Like,
Yeah.
I just had this crazy idea. And then come to find out, I had a friend that worked there. This guy,
cool.
Danny, because it sounded like real similar to something he did. He had just graduated from Pitt. And I called him. I said, "Hey, you guys are hiring. It looks like." He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I think I'm going to call. Do you mind putting a good word in for me?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." But he had no idea I spent less than 2 hours with a computer.
You're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
So I called my dad and I say, "Hey, I got this job interview." I called and they set up this interview, and they're like, "Yeah, come in like 10 days." And I called my dad and say, "Hey, I've got this computer job interview," and he started laughing, because he knew, and and I'm like, I need help, like I need, so I went over to his house and he gave me this DOS manual. He goes, learn these different DOS commands, and then so across like 4 or 5 times going to his house, I'd learn these DOS commands. We would talk about them a little bit, so I had like these buzzwords,
Right.
but I had no idea what any of it really meant.
Yeah.
And I went and I interviewed. And they called me like 2 days later, like, you got the job.
Wow.
I called my dad. I'm like, hey, I just got that job.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to be shitting me.
That's amazing.
And I'm like,
you were good enough at. I feel like you're one of those people that when you.
well, I had
commit-
I had a referral too. So
Right,
like,
and that helped,
They,
yeah.
Well, yeah, they didn't realize I, didn't know what I was talking
Any
about.
idea.
So then I had to go to my dad's house every night for like 2 weeks to
And just
like
learn it, yeah.
and learn some software and learn some accounting basics
But
and
that goes to show you, like, if you had never even tried that, you know what I mean? Like, most people would stop at and be like, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know any computers.
I thought I
stuff,
found it like really fun. To, like,
yeah, it's like a challenge,
like there was a movie. I want to say it was like maybe Good Will Hunting, or where one of them goes for the interview that the other one's supposed to be taken, or something. I forget what movie. It reminded like, especially when I got interviewed and just used buzzwords and didn't even know what I was talking about. But so what was cool is like in 2 weeks after that, so I got that job. I started training. One guy knew, like I completely wasn't sure what the heck was going on, and this guy Dan, and he helped me out and be like, "Well, dude, what's this mean?"
Yeah.
But like 2.5 weeks, I was traveling the country teaching accounting software and setting up, connecting local area networks. And then after a year of that, I got into selling technology right at a time when companies were moving off of mainframes and mid-sized computers to PC-based local area networks. And I was a salesperson by nature, but I could talk about it from being like on the very technical end of it, because I had done that.
Right.
And so I got, good, like credibility of like, I was this like techie guy, but I wouldn't tell those people I started by completely bullshitting an interview.
right. Well, that just goes to show you though, man. It's like, if you have enough drive and commitment to learning something, I feel like you can, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't need all the schooling. You got the job by literally just pure will. Like, it was will.
Whimsical sort of, learning 10 buzzwords. And then, and at that point I didn't really, I don't think anybody thought I was going to get the job. And then I got the job.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh,
now what?
Oh boy.
Now what do we do?
But then, so it was really interesting. Like, and then what I found was I didn't find any of that really difficult.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'd already proven with my driver's license I wasn't slow.
Right, we figured it out a while ago. Yeah, I've always felt that way, that I was just like, not that I'm better than anyone or like better than a blue collar job or anything. I was just like, I know myself and I know what burns inside of me, and I knew it wasn't these things. Like every time I would try something, it wasn't these things, and I ended up getting into video at the right time.
Yeah.
Just
Well, you know, I talked a little bit about wrestling. Wrestling was going to be my ticket, and you know, it ended up being a ticket.
right. Just
And then I got burnt out cutting weight, and then me and my dad got in a big fight, and I moved to Hawaii for a year.
Wow.
After high school, and lived on the beach on the North Shore.
yeah, and just were like,
Well,
screw
my
it all.
family was out there, like half my family
Yeah.
was out there, and yeah, so like you know, like you just like you with the music, I trained 5 hours a day most of the year
Yeah.
to get something, and once I got there, I said I didn't want it.
Right.
Y-
Yeah.
you know, and then
It's a strange feeling. It's
so
a strange feeling.
yeah, no, I was telling you that story because I was like, I was in, I came back and then was doing community college. I think I was working at UPS, like, you know, it's like, you know, you're in like part-time supervisor, but I wasn't going really anywhere, you know, and I'm glad I did that because it got me into computers at like 19, 20. And
Which is a great time. Yeah.
yeah. Otherwise, you know, if I didn't do that, who knows? You know,
Yeah, you don't,
Like I
yeah.
would have been, you know, I would have found something. But I'm glad that happened at an early age.
Yeah, I mean that's big to find something like that early on to be able to grow off of. And I just wanted to touch on the one thing you said about getting somewhere and then realizing you don't want it, because I feel like a lot of people look at like celebrities and stuff like that, like the guy from Linkin Park who killed himself, Chester Bennington.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he had everything and he had that. And I'm like, you know, there's probably all this, there's mental health obviously involved in it and all that stuff. But like, I always tell people, I'm like, they're just people like us. Like, it takes a lot of effort and all this stuff to get to a place where you thought that this is what you wanted. Imagine becoming one of the biggest rock stars in the entire world, and then, or an actor, or just something that you're like, you have it all, technically, what people say. And then you're there and you're like, there's still a hole. There's still a hole in me. Like, I don't know how to fix it. I don't understand it. And then you try and tell people that I'm not happy, but people are like, you have everything. You know, and people are constantly telling you, you have it. You have everything that you could ever want. So that has to eat inside of you. You know, eat away at you.
I'm sure. I mean, I think, you know, for me, like me personally, I self-talk myself constantly.
Yeah.
Like I got to say these simple things. You know, I got to think about pain fuel. I got to think about I can, and keep myself saying I can't. Once, you know, fix that quickly, you know, and pin these simple ideas. What future am I killing today?
Right.
You know, I got to think about that and then lock in like to that day and focus on that day. Because if I don't, like the voice, you know, you get all this self-doubt and you're you know, like, and that can just spiral and snowball and get bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, you're, you know, like he committed suicide, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
because
easy.
it just got too big, you know, and, you know, I don't know his full situation, but
that's all speculation on my part. That's just trying to take an example from something where people were like, why would he do that? Because he had everything. And I'm like, but did he though? Like, I know people that have nothing and they're the happiest people that ever existed, you know?
Well, sometimes you know, you work yourself into something and then you look around and you're like, is this really what I wanted?
This is not what I thought it was.
I'm like really happy with where I'm at. Like, from all the angles, you know, but I'm always, but I'm perpetually working on getting better. In a lot of areas, you know, so it's, you know, when I do good things for people, take care of my family, live a good life, help people. And, but yeah, it takes a ton of self-talk, I think,
it does
to, and then pin down some, like every day I gotta like lock into these concepts. 'Cause It's so like our business is so easy to spend days doing little things and never get into the big things unless you get them into your time block and
Right.
and hold yourself accountable and,
Yeah.
and are consistent at it, and then you start to see these improvements, and that's the compound effect. If
Right.
you haven't read that book, it's a great book. But the problem is just like with guitar lessons, like you don't see the improvement. It takes too long, right?
It takes way too long.
Yeah, and then if you're doing a few times a week things that aren't good for
Yeah.
you, the compound effect
Yeah.
in the negative,
Yeah.
where your health is declining. I'm 53. I know people that have died over the last 10 years from too much drinking causing
Yeah.
issues, or too much
Yeah.
something, or
Too much stress. Just
yeah,
I don't think we're trained, and we're not trained as human beings to see like the long term. We're so accustomed, especially now, it's even worse because everything we want is just there.
Yeah.
Like I ordered something last night at like 2 a.m. I don't know why. Don't ask me why I ordered something at 2 a.m. It was literally 2 a.m. Ordered something on Amazon. It was at my door by the time I woke up.
yeah.
I was like, that's insane, dude.
Well, the thing about like our business is you realize the stuff you're working on today is not going to make you money for like 90 days, 120 days.
Yeah.
So
That's a tough pill to
we're pretty
swallow.
conditioned, in that regard. And, this, like in the last year, I've been working on stuff that is the result is just starting to trickle, but that's the beginning of what's going to be a really awesome flow.
Right.
But a lot of people don't do it, like the SEO
Yeah.
or the YouTube channel
Yeah.
that's done in the right way, where it's authentic and it's what actually people are looking for. There's
Yeah.
so much content that realtors do out there that they're like, hey, I'm Jack from Remax. People don't want to be sold by a real
Right,
estate agent.
right.
They want to
That-
see a neighborhood or a community, and it's got to be more like a TV show.
Yeah.
It's got to be interesting. It's got
And
to
you
be.
can't sell them. You can't sell them.
There's-
You're like, hey, I happen to be this, but this is the content I'm giving you today.
Well, you say that at the very end.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way,
Yeah. If you've made it this far,
yeah, which a lot of people don't. But so that's some of the things that we can do and that people do that have some of the best results take time, where you're not getting anything. Where in our business we can buy leads, we can buy Zillow
Sure,
leads, we
sure.
can
It's easy,
we can
right?
buy pay per click on Google leads, which we do all of that
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But for sustainability, for affordability, for return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
For like the last year, I'm working on stuff, and that's why I'm saying like I've grown so much without growing. Like our business has been good the last
Yeah.
couple of years, but the way that our industry sees things, like it's got to be agent count and volume and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had a 30-person team where the resources got pulled in so many different directions that
Yeah.
it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. It's kind of like working out all of the glamour muscles just to look good in the mirror, right? And you have a weak core, and one day you get injured because
Well, some teams are make a lot of sense from a profitability standpoint. A lot of teams are just a sort of propped up facade of like, hey, we're a team. We're really an assemblage of agents, and the people running it, everything goes under their name.
Yeah.
Our volume is distributed across our team because when people look up our agents, I want people to see their
Right,
volume.
right.
So when you see some rankings out there, we're not like at the top
Right.
because everybody at the top puts everything under their name.
under one
Yeah,
umbrella.
and we'll never aspire to be the largest in volume.
Right.
If there was a consumer experience
Yeah.
rating, like that's what we'd be fighting for.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're aspiring to win awards, you're probably in it for the wrong reasons, right?
Well, I got it does. If you have a big ego, and a lot of people in this business do,
Very true.
then awards are. I mean, that's why people are so triggered by awards.
Right,
Like they
right.
just show off with these fake awards, right?
Yeah.
Like it. We're the only business where at the end of the year you tell everybody I did this, I did this, I did that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
Like you can go back. I mean, although my Facebook account got shut down a couple weeks ago
I saw
because
that. That's wild. That's wild.
Not being authentic. I think I was in Universal Studios in Orlando, and my name's Ron Howard. I don't know. Like, and they disable it, and they don't have any employees that you can get hold of, and so I got a new account now. It took a couple weeks to really decide whether to just build a new one.
Yeah.
16 years of having an account that
That's just
their AI thought was not an authentic account.
right. What did they think you were, Ron Howard, the director? Or was that
I've never pretended to be that guy.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
bizarre. You know, it's really, really bizarre.
that is bizarre.
But what I was going to say is you could go back and see, I don't do that. Like
Yeah.
I want people to think of me as like a financial planner, as like
Right.
an accountant, as an attorney. I thought about doing all kinds of funny TikTok stuff and everything, but I'm like, it's just not,
If it's not you,
it's
yeah.
not me.
Right.
What I am doing on that's very searchable content is me.
Right.
And it took a little bit to figure out, you know, that part of it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's one thing I do try and stress to people is if you see somebody doing something, just because it's working for them, it might work for you, but if it's not you, if it's not genuinely you, it's gonna come off as cheesy. Like
Yeah.
it just is. Like
you
have to find yourself.
When we started doing our video and audio podcast, for me, I'm pretty even keeled.
Yeah.
And in the past, when I was doing videos, I felt like I had to like sort of project
Push
a
it.
bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And when
Create
you
an
project,
avatar.
like I would speed up a little
Yeah.
bit, and then so it, you know, what you got was like a little more energy, but sometimes I was talking too fast.
Yeah.
And then you know, I got to finding like my comfort level with doing video. But then when we started, you know, the podcast, I started into like, okay, I got to project a little bit.
Yeah,
I got to
yeah,
like
yeah.
do all
Yeah.
this stuff and everything. And then I said, you know what? Why don't I just be myself?
Just chill. Right?
Yeah.
Just
And
have a conversation, right?
Right. So now, like there's like 6 of us that do this podcast, for sometimes 2, mostly 3 or 4 at a time, about communities, and it flows so good.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's being themselves. It's
Right.
authentic.
Yeah.
And it's knowledgeable.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's working for the main reason we did it, and it's not an ego related reason.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, let's end with this. What is one piece of advice that you would give to any aspiring realtor, aspiring business person who wants to start their own business, or just somebody who just wants to take control of their life and just be genuinely just a better version of themselves?
I think the first step is being honest with yourself. You know, sitting in a dark room and really thinking about what it is that you want.
And why you want those things, right?
Yeah, why? But you know, what you want, commit to it, and then be honest of like how you're going to achieve it. And then to me, it's real easy. Like when I knew when I got into real estate, I just shut down this business. I'd run out of money. I had to make it work. So I was like, I'm going to give this 110% effort. And then this where I had to be honest, like what is 110% effort? There's not one hangover in there. And I just like that, boom, quit drinking. That was easy. That was like, that happened. That was the first thing. Like I decided. And then I was like, well, when can I have another drink? And I'm like, once I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
And
That's a logical step.
Well, right? Like,
Now I'm a pilot. Okay, fucked up.
well, I wanted to create this high barrier, and I did.
Right.
It was six months later, I was a pilot.
That's awesome.
Which, I mean, I could tell stories, so crazy, funny stories around that. But being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like most people spend their whole lives, you know, BSing themselves.
It's true. Yeah.
And then I find it very effective to lock onto really basic habits and a framework that's I'm consistent, I'm committed to, and I'm accountable. And all of that combined, it's like undefeated in life. You will win every single time if you can hold yourself accountable to some basic core habits and concepts and stick to it. do, if they're all good habits, and do that for a year, and those little ideas just turn into a life that you like I do mine.
That's awesome. Well,
So
thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Great
Yeah.
conversation as always.
yeah, definitely. Good to see you.